Okay, so what has improved then? So the following slides are intended to review some areas of the new audit instrument which have either been reworded to provide extra clarity to the auditor as to what is needed or what's to verify whether or not requirements have been met, or could be added to address certain issues that have been regularly identified over the years, as the audit instrument didn't really include the ability to demonstrate how some of these issues can now be verified by the auditor. So we've made some significant improvements when we rejig to the new audit instrument. So element 6 then, 6.6, are personnel given instruction or training in the use of PPE as required. So you can review the training records, toolbox talks, orientations, etc. To verify that the employees have received instruction with respect to the use of the PPE before it's required to be worn. And you can confirm employee understanding of supply training for the interview process. We've given required instruction and training for specialised PPE, fall protection, respiratory protection, etc., but not PPE in general. 6.8 is the system for regularly inspecting and maintaining PPE followed then. So basic PPE inspections may be conducted and recorded as part of a safety meeting or be included as an item on the company's inspection checklist. You can include specialised PPE inspections which will verify pre-use inspection and compliance with the manufacturer's recommendations. And where applicable, you can detail it in the hearing conservation programme or the respiratory protection programme. So previously we've only looked for fall protection equipment inspections. However, the national audit instrument does have a mechanism now for the regular inspection of PPE, and it's up to the companies to actually dictate the frequency of inspection for the general PPE. So element 7, does a qualified competent person perform the inspection and maintenance of tools and equipment? So you can address this through interviews and verify that employees know who is responsible to complete the required maintenance and repairs, and that they are being made by qualified individuals. And this may be verified by a trade certificate or based on experience or education or some formal training. It's a new requirement, but it's not a new concept. The manufacturer's specifications often and do make specific requirements onto who's qualified and competent to perform the inspections. Element 8 then, have supervisors received training in their health and safety responsibilities? It's a new guideline, and you can review your training records to ensure that supervisors have received training in, and at a minimum, the following items should be looked at. The roles and responsibilities of the supervisors. Are they familiar with the Act and regulations? Do they understand hazard recognition, evaluation and control methods? Do they participate or conduct incident investigation? Reporting procedures, workplace inspections or disciplinary procedures, due diligence, harassment. Now, any supervisor who's completed either COR training or the Workplace Personnel Supervisor Safety Certification or the NLCSA Safety for Supervisors Construction would be considered to have appropriate training. However, the auditor can also verify through other in-house training or formal training that supervisors have been appropriately trained in the subjects that I've just previously read out. It's new to place a specific obligation on training supervisors and to establish a minimum requirement for what would be acceptable. So we've kind of highlighted that and actually broken out what training for supervisors would be applicable and relatable to the supervisors. 8.7 is a system in place to measure knowledge, competency and effectiveness of training. So you can once again review training records to ensure that evaluations are being conducted with workers to determine the effectiveness of that training. This might be accomplished through written or performance evaluations tests, examinations associated with the job-specific training. I mean, it's a new requirement and included in the national audit, and it's intended to identify how the employer and supervisors are determining the competency of workers and not just relying on training certificates. A training certificate is basically a mechanism to say somebody has received the training, but unless you actually determine and clarify on the job-specific training, you don't really know if that training that they received and gained a certificate from actually sunk in. So once again, it's a new requirement, but the emphasis and the onus is on the owners of the company and the supervisors to measure that knowledge and effectiveness of the training after training has been completed. So 9.5, are supervisors involved in inspection? So some of the things the auditor can do is check for signatures on this inspection reports to verify that supervisors are involved in a formal inspection process. This might be accomplished through active participation in workplace inspections or by reviewing and signing off complete inspection reports. This question must also be verified through the interview process as well. We would expect to see supervisors involved and would have ensured members of the committee would participate in. However, the specific reference is new to the audit instrument, but it is in line with the national standard. So have supervisors been trained in investigation and reporting procedures? Well, once again, we can review training records and confirm that all supervisors have been trained in their specific responsibilities for conducting investigations. If the supervisor meets the requirements of element 8.6, they would also meet this requirement. So this is new to place a specific obligation on training supervisors and to establish a minimum requirement for what is acceptable. But once again, this is in line with the new national instrument. (11.1) Emergency response plan posted in the workplace. So we can review documentation and determine if an emergency plan exists. The plan should include procedures to follow for foreseeable emergencies and document the required number of qualified first aid personnel on site. A copy of the site-specific emergency plan must be posted at the work site. So there was always a requirement to prepare the plan and post emergency numbers, but not to post the plan. So in addition to the health and safety first aid regulations, they actually require that this information is to be posted, and that could be included the plan and escape routes. So this has been previously overlooked, but now is an actual requirement. Harassment, workplace violence, and working alone. So we'll split these down and we'll talk about these individually. 25.1, has the employer conducted a risk assessment to determine the potential for workplace harassment and workplace violence and working alone, and were workers consulted for feedback? So we can review the hazard assessment records to determine if workplace harassment, working alone, and workplace violence have been included. The assessment must include any previous experience in the workplace, any occupational experience in similar workplaces, location and circumstances in which work may take place, identify workplace characteristics, including demographics, culture, and presence of new workers, any issues raised by the Health and Safety Committee or the worker rep, designate, etc. And you can verify that through interviews, that workers were consulted during the risk assessment process. 25.4, has the employer developed a harassment prevention plan in consultation with the Health and Safety Designate Committee, and is it reviewed annually? So you can review the safety program documentation and verify the existence of a harassment prevention plan. The plan must be developed in consultation with the committee worker rep or worker designate and shall include a statement that every worker is entitled to employment free from workplace harassment, include a statement that the employer is committed to eliminating where possible or otherwise minimizing the hazard of a workplace harassment, include a statement of the worker's obligation to take reasonable care to not engage in bullying or workplace harassment, report observations or experiences of bullying and workplace harassment, and comply with a harassment prevention plan. It can include a statement of the supervisor's obligation to ensure the health and safety of workers, including the supervisor's obligation to apply and comply with a harassment prevention plan. Set out the procedures for workers to report instances of harassment to an employer or supervisor, or where the employer supervisor is the alleged harasser, the procedures to report harassment to an external third party. It must also set out procedures to be followed after a complaint of workplace harassment is received and a manner in which a complaint is investigated. It has to include a statement that any information obtained relating to workplace harassment, including personal information, will not be disclosed until it is necessary for the purpose of an investigation, corrective action relating to the complaint, or where required by law. Also has to set out the procedures regarding notification of results or investigations and any actions to be taken as a result of an investigation. It includes a statement that the harassment prevention plan is not intended to discourage a worker from exercising his or her rights under the Human Rights Act 2010, the Criminal Code of Canada, or any other law of the Province of Canada, and includes a statement that the employer should protect workers from retaliation and provide support to workers where workplace harassment occurs. The harassment prevention plan must be signed and dated annually and include as an annual safety program review, which has been signed and dated by senior management. So 25.5, has the employer completed training in harassment prevention? So you can review the training records to confirm that someone from management has completed the NLCSA harassment training course or equivalent. 25.6, are the workplace parties educated on the harassment prevention plan, the respective responsibilities under the plan, and the procedure for filing a complaint? So once again, you can review records of toolbox talks, safety meetings, training records, orientations, etc. to confirm that a harassment prevention plan has been reviewed with all workplace parties at a minimum annually, and you can confirm the worker knowledge of the plan through the interviews. So this is obviously new and is based on the amendments to the Occupational Health and Safety Regulations section 22-24.2. Early return to work program and program evaluation, large prime. So upon first being notified from Workplace NL that your company is a large prime assessment employer, that's those who pay $48,000 or more in average base assessments to Workplace NL, the company is required to submit a copy of its return to work program to the NLCSA for review. For each year, the company is still classified as large prime, therefore a joint meaningful consultation must be conducted, and the results must be evaluated and communicated to all workers, and at least one individual must have received training and return to work. So there were previously provisions for large prime assessment employers relating to early safe return to work programs in the audit tool. Specifically, the tool asked whether the early safe return to work program had been reviewed and the results communicated with workers. Companies would then be required to submit documentation to verify this consultation, evaluation and communication has taken place through surveys, meetings, that sort of thing. The additional details included in this version of the audit tool will actually constitute the employer's evaluation of the early safe return to work program. So that's a new a new thing we've added and has been agreed with workplace NL. Okay, so as such, they will not have to send in any additional documentation to the NLCSA in this regard. Okay, so that's been agreed on with workplace NL. So that's a fantastic thing. So the new guideline 27.3, does the organisation track disability management data? You can review the statistical records and confirm that the company tracks the actual data related to the Early Safe Return to Work programme. So some examples of disability management data include lost time days, modified or alternative work days, delays in injury reporting, that sort of thing. This would also include trend analysis of injury data, such as what body part was injured, the cause of the injury, the time of injury, that sort of thing. So if there's been no injuries, look for a written process which identifies the data that will be tracked as part of the Early Safe Return to Work programme. 27.4, does the organisation review disability management data to identify opportunities for improvement in joint meaningful consultation with workers? So you can review the meeting records and confirm that the employer reviews disability management data in joint meaningful consultation with workers to identify opportunities for improvement. This might be accomplished through the Health and Safety Committee, having discussions with the employer, or you can actually have a separate Early Safe Return to Work committee. 27.5, has an individual been assigned the duties of a disability management? So review health and safety documentation and you can confirm that an individual, or maybe that group of individuals, that have been assigned to oversee the disability management. Within some larger organisations, there may be an actual individual with a title of claims manager, disability manager, and in smaller organisations, this role may be assigned to an individual with a different role, office manager or safety coordinator. Okay. 27.6, has disability management coordinator received training or education to carry out their duties? So once again, we can review the training records, the credentials or work history to determine if the individual who oversees the Return to Work programme has sufficient training and or knowledge to carry out their duties. Element 27, are all offers of modified or alternative work being documented on the appropriate Early Safe Return to Work plan forms, and does the injured worker assist in identifying suitable and meaningful work? Review Early Safe Return to Work plans and ensure that they have been completed on the approved Workplace NL form. The form must also verify that the injured worker has been involved in identifying suitable and meaningful work, and this must also be confirmed through interviews with workers who have participated in the programme. 27.8, are Return to Work plans been adjusted as necessary to reflect an injured worker's progress or non-progression of healing? So you can review the Early Safe Return to Work plans and Form MDs, which is the old Form 810, to ensure that the Return to Work plans are updated as new functional ability information becomes available. So are they being kept up to date? 27.9, is the company following the communication protocol outlined within the Early Safe Return to Work programme? So you can review the records to confirm that regular communication is taking place with the injured worker in accordance with the communication protocol outlined in the Early Safe Return to Work programme. This might be documented on the Early Safe Return to Work plans, Early Safe Return to Work meeting minutes, that sort of thing. And you can verify that the communication protocol was followed through the interviews with the workers who participated in the actual programme itself. 27.10, does the organisation communicate the results of the Early Safe Return to Work evaluation with the workers? So once again, you can review the toolbox talks, the minutes of the safety minutes meeting, and to confirm that the results of the Early Safe Return to Work programme evaluation has been communicated to workers. This might also be shared through email or be posted on communication boards in the workplace or other forms of communications. More information will be discussed later on in other webinars about early safe return to work. So if you have any questions about early safe return to work, then I encourage you to give us a ring, and hopefully we can actually talk about that in more detail with you. So in conclusion to this webinar, we've discussed the new format, what's new in the audit instrument, what's improved, and the new audit instrument is now located on the NLCSA's website in the resource library folder under the core materials. Also, it's actually broken down into easy downloadable form. If you just want the audit instrument itself without the guidelines, then that's available for you too. If you want the extra audit site information forms, then once again you can download that as well. We are currently working on a fillable PDF version of the audit instrument, and that will be available as soon as that's completed, and we'll probably notify everybody of that in one of our media releases. So if you have any questions relating to this presentation or about the new audit instrument in general, then you can contact us at info@nlcsa.com or ring 739 7000, and you can leave a voicemail and somebody will return your call. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.